creating a confederation. So thank you for all this information. And well, it's somehow nice to see all this taking shape. I mean, we were all a little bit anxious about understanding a little bit better.
Me too.
You said, I mean, of course, I mean, I'm joining what Yara was saying. I mean, unions are clearly in an inside-outside strategy. So, I mean, we are deploying efforts in order to get our messages ahead in as many places as possible. It's the risk of really boring our colleagues in the rest of civil society. Basically, what I would like to ask you is how you see the communication between the messages coming from the dialogues with the heads of state. Because that's somehow the added value of these dialogues as far as I can hear from you. But that's probably the part that is less clear, if you allow me, when we see that communication and the plans for the dialogues themselves. I mean, how you see those three proposals coming from the themes connected to an outcome coming from the heads of state. I mean, how this is going to be shown, not only expressed to the heads of state, but what is going to be the status of those proposals after being presented to the heads of state.
Yes, hello. Sasha Gabi is on Women in Europe for a Common Future and organizing partner for the Women's Major Group here. We had concerns in the beginning as well because gender and women was not one of your themes, and
it's all over.
That is terrible. So our strategy was also that to say, well, at least we shouldn't have strong women in these dialogue things. So I'm happy to hear that some of our suggestions are being taken on board. And we have a similar, I had the same question really. I mean, how we would hope to see a very strong message coming out of the dialogue days because we're not so sure we're getting a very strong declaration out of this process. So can we have something really strong coming out? And do I understand correctly that we need to start putting in messages now into this online system so that there is already a clear position coming forward from which we will start working? Or how do you see this link between the online system and the days themselves? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'll try to take both questions. In a way, the online system is crucial, and the quality of the online discussions will add, hopefully, weight to the recommendations. Now, if the online discussions go as we expect, we will have a set of important, serious, well-discussed recommendations that then the panel, in the panel days, will be narrowed down to 3. It doesn't mean that the other 7 will be lost, of course. There is already an idea of having a publication out of this whole set of recommendations, together, for instance, with a summary by the professors that will be facilitating the discussions. This would be an interesting document to have after. Now, regarding the 3 recommendations, so the set of 30 recommendations that will go to the heads of states, what we envisage is each panel will have 2 moderators chosen among the 10, and those 2 will hand the specific recommendations of their panel to the heads of states. The weight those recommendations will depend on the quality of the online discussion and on the quality of the panel discussion, and all the support the whole process gets from different actors. The effect they will have, we cannot predict, because one thing that is essential to this process is that this is not an intergovernmental process. So in a way it has its limitations, and in another way it has its advantages. But the fact that if we try to have something more formal regarding, let's say, inclusion on the final document or things like that, we would have to go to the other room and discuss that with 193 other countries. And you know what that means at this point. So recommendations will be handed over to the heads of state. As I said, we cannot at this time predict what they will do with them. But I think it would be safe to say that, depending on if it's a high-quality discussion, if it's a representative panel, they will carry a lot of weight, and they will be published. So, so far, that's all I can say about that. We are providing the channel for the recommendations to reach directly the heads of state.
And will they be presented on the first day, on the 20th?
On the round tables.
On the round tables.
Okay.
I'm sorry we have limited time because we also have other business, but I'll take the first three.
Okay, I'll be around if you need some. I'll be glad to take your questions after that.
Yeah, I'll take the final three that I saw earlier. One from here, one from there, and in the back.
Tom Jacob from Business and Industry, and I guess this actually may be directed more at the ambassador, but we're here for this negotiation focused on the text, and we made some good progress, particularly compared to earlier sessions, but it still looks like there's going to be enormous pressure on the PrepCom, and a lot of pressure I'm already beginning to sense to perhaps extend the negotiation into the sandwich days, and I'm curious if there's been any firm decisions about the possibility of doing that, and if there is any extension into the sandwich days, does it disrupt at all the plans for the dialogues?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dirk Verdonk. The discussion during the dialogue days, so we have a panel, we have a public, but how is the interaction organized between the panels?
Good morning, my name is Becky Doron from Ibon International in the Philippines. Mine is both a logistical and a political question, because in the spirit of exploring possibilities for dialogue, we wanted to see the possibility of organizing a civil society side event, but we see that it's very prohibitive. The costs for trying to get a space it's like riding a taxi. You organize a 30-minute, a 1-minute event, the meter just keeps on coming down, and it's very prohibitive for many of us in civil society to actually afford to organize a side event at this dialogue. So what is a logistical problem for many of civil society is also going to turn out to be political, because if this cost would be so limiting for us, then we won't be able to have our voice in that space. So
well, regarding the negotiations getting into the 4 days, I think that's already on the radar, and it won't disrupt at all the dialogues process. The negotiations will take place in different spaces that already, I think, put aside for that. So no disruption whatsoever. On the interaction between the audience and the panels, one of the recommendations or suggestions that we got from people involved in the People's Summit, sectors involved in the People's Summit, was to provide for some time for members of the audience to discuss among themselves their recommendations. We will have the set of recommendations, the 10 or 12, on screen, and since it will be a UN design audience, you could have groups of 6 people also discussing among themselves the recommendations. And then there's an idea floating. We still have to see if it's feasible. We still have to see if it works. But an idea of having the members of the audience voting on the 3 they prefer. We're still working on that, but that's one idea. And finally, on the costs of Rio, all I can say is I sympathize, and I'm a little bit puzzled by what's going on. I hope there will be some sort of solution to that. The government is working actively on trying to solve some of the problems, but it's beyond my capacity to answer that. All I can say is I take that, I'll pass that on, and I sympathize totally.
No. I know you have other matters to do. I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm André Corrêa do Lago. And I would like to just say make a comment after listening to that meeting. And I think, first of all, I would like to say to you that since this is being done by UNDP, by Jules and by Henri, to say that they've done, I think, an amazing work to do that in such a short time, because this is a very innovative idea. It's far from perfect. But it is, I think, a very interesting contribution, and I would like to comment on that, based also on what Yara said, which is very important. This exercise, because basically the dialogues are an exercise, this is a contribution that the Brazilian government, together with the UN, are developing, thinking of one of the main issues that we're dealing with at Rio+20, which is how can civil society be more active, or how can it be better heard in the processes we're going to open in Rio+20. Because I think that Rio+20 is going to be the opening of very important processes for the next steps. And I think that this is a very interesting exercise that can be bettered. But the fact is that it doesn't substitute at all what civil society does by itself, because the independence of civil society is absolutely key. But what we are trying to do is try to maybe show a bit the way that we can choose on the next steps on how we can have civil society more present in those processes. And I'm sure that this can be better. This is an exercise which I think that they've done an incredible job. I think that Henri is really, he's almost, I don't know how he's here, not sleeping. But this is a contribution of the Brazilian government in association with the UN. By no way this is the solution, this is whatever, but it is a contribution. Because what we know, and this is also an important point I think I'd like to make, is that this is not a dialogue thinking of the document that we're negotiating here. What we're negotiating here is a document, as Jules said, that is a highly complex process. These dialogues is on how we're going to use and how we're going to define the priorities of what we're going to do with the result of this process. Of Rio+20, because we're going to open a series of processes, and we want to have more participation and to have a more modern, a more contemporary way of having civil society communicate to the UN and to the member countries what is happening. I'm back to the fact that a comment that was made here, that the document is not very inspiring. Maybe something can come from that. I think that the whole process of Rio+20, starting in Stockholm, but mostly from Rio on, is that if civil society was not there pressuring and raising issues, raising information, raising discussions, this process would not have happened. So, and this is one contribution to allow for more of that, because this is absolutely key, and we know that governments only move when they have interests or when they feel that it is important for their civil society. And so I hope that this will contribute to this effort, to a new step of participation in civil society. Now, as a Brazilian, we are very conscious in the government, and as you know, we have a government at this moment that had many people that for many years were opposition and were not in the government,